Well, hi, friends. I'm Kim DeAllen. Welcome to Walking With, our podcast where we connect with those who are passionately pursuing solutions for our planet. This is our first ever episode, so very excited. I even have my glass of champagne waiting for when we finish it, Ty. Um, and it's felt like the perfect time and perfect sense to kick things off walking with different change makers by starting with our president of Walking Softer, Tighe Brown. Tighe is just a solid leader. She has expertise in youth wellness, food systems, the nonprofit space, and she was president of the national nonprofit Big Green. She grew up on the East Coast, went to school on the West Coast, calls Colorado home, also my home state. And today she's our very first and premier guest of honor. Tighe, welcome to Walking With.
Thanks, Kim. Good to be here.
Why don't we just jump right in? I'm curious if you can give us a little bit of background on Walking Softer just from the name. Why the name Walking Softer?
That is a great question. I was thinking about this last night, and what came up for me was why I joined Walking Softer. I met Vinny and Tori and the founding team back in 2022, and really was so inspired by the energy and passion from the group that was creating Walking Softer because, and I think the name reflects this, it was a group of leaders that had a ton of experience from creative to marketing to nonprofit to startup to environmental and justice activism that wanted to highlight solutions across any sector to help the planet, to really be able to look at how do we as a world, as a globe, the 8 billion plus people, change the way that we are impacting the planet in a really holistic way. And that I think is really what Walking Softer is all about. The name speaks.
No, I love it. I think the name is perfect. And that's obviously why we did the spinoff Walking With, because one of the things that I've appreciated too is the core value of the organization to highlight others. I think in a world where so many people are like, look at me, look at us, Walking Softer has this really strong value for shining the light other places. Can you talk about why that's maybe a core value of the organization and why that's important as you pursue future goals and partnerships with the organization?
I think it's important to the organization and something that we talk about a lot. We're just inspired by all the amazing things that people are doing out there. Uh, one I think just really fun story is the team got together in the early 2023 and we learned about this organization that was working on solutions for plastic. And we spent 2 or 3 hours just reading about how amazing this organization was that had come up with a solution that anyone could do around reusing plastic. And for us, it's that story that then inspired us to come up with an award program for young leaders who actually um, have solutions for the planet themselves. And I think it's with that inspiration and seeing and learning about those stories that we start with when we're really doing anything at Walking Softer is how do we get more stories out there? How do we lift more leaders up? How do we resource more leaders so that we can conserve and regenerate the planet?
It's great because you mentioned Vinny and Tori, Vinny and Victoria Smith, the founders of Walking Softer. Can you speak to a little bit of how, I mean, they're amazing people, incredible humans. A power couple, maybe not in the traditional sense because I don't know, I think of like power suits, but that would be like a swimsuit for Vinny. So what is there, they have this kind of humble genius behind the both of them and a deep spirituality, and humility is just the number one word I think of for them. But in which ways do you feel like their personalities influence how the organization operates?
Hmm. I was talking about this earlier with someone, and we were talking about the leadership summit that we put on that inspired this podcast in many ways, and got Kim, you and I working together in many ways as well. And we were talking about gathering and what it takes to gather people. And I really credit Vinny and Tori in terms of the ability to gather people and help each person work through their journey as it relates to how to lead an impactful and purposeful life. Because I think that Vinny and Tori are great examples of really doing that as a couple, as well as personally thinking about what really matters to them and how do they take action now. And that is one of the things that I think I just love about Vinny and Tori, and also about Walking Softer, is that we are very action oriented, are serious about how we're going to put our plans in place.
Yeah, I love that. And through all the different levers, we definitely took a risk, and the organization did this great experiment of the Antarctica trip in February. Over 100 people, artists, scientists, philanthropists, business leaders, you name it, educators going down to Antarctica. Why do you think that those immersive experiences, I mean, you touched on it, but an immersive experience like that is critical, and I think I know the risk was worth the reward for sure. But what are some of the ways you've seen that matter and walk us softer but quicker towards our solutions?
One of the things that I think is so cool about Vinny and Tori is that they really want to embrace big ideas and be able to reach a lot of people. And in order to do that, you have to really think big and also be ready to go and move. And this Antarctica trip is an example of an idea that we heard from Bob Ingalls. Actually, he's the one that was really inspired himself, and and Kim, I'll let you explain who Bob Ingalls is to the podcast group maybe in a second. But he really inspired us to think about how do we get others to see what is happening in a beautiful place, and to experience the wildness. To When we went to Antarctica, one of the things that I think was just so amazing for all of us was really to sit in the wild in a way where there was just, that was all it was. There was nothing else around us, and it's with that experience that we have seen these ripple effects, that we have seen a partnership budding between Katie Leakey in Africa and Edward Mueller in Costa Rica, and the Walking Softer team, that we have seen Gina McCarthy help advise on various policy efforts across so many different leaders and groups that we've connected with. So I just think that is the real special sauce to gathering, is taking people to a wild experience, bringing together different perspectives, and also letting it holistically happen. When you're on a boat for 10 days, you can only have so much programming, but also you really do see that holistic connection going on.
For sure. I don't think we would have ever had that same group of people in the same room under any other circumstances. So it was very special. And you're right. Shout out to Bob, because he really is an incredible human, serving in so many years of Republican leadership. And somebody, this is something I wanted to talk to you about anyways, because somebody that came to his level of passion, understanding, his tipping point came later in life on climate change, and really was inspired largely by his children. I would also consider myself somebody that came later to the game on this. It's not something I'm proud of. It's just the truth is that it took me longer to understand and unlock my understanding, and now my passion has for sure flowed with it. What advice do you have, especially since you have so much experience with youth activism and youth that programs, education based, but also on the philanthropy side, people who have maybe become very attached to things that they've been part of for so long? How do they transition and go, you know what, maybe I'm late to the game, but it's not too late? What advice do you have, or encouragement do you have for people that are thinking, you know what, Hurricane Hillary was 2 days ago, an earthquake, Maui, maybe I'm ready to start really looking at this, despite the fact that I wasn't that invested earlier?
It's interesting. You're making me think about, what my story and how I came to working on climate, and how I came to working in the food space. And I grew up in Baltimore and was a athlete and cared so much about being outside because I played sports. That's what really drove me, and that really is how I got to uh, Berkeley out in California. And it wasn't until when I was in Berkeley taking a class that I realized that eating pasta and garlic bread for 5 meals a week is not the way that is good for your body, nor is it good for the planet in terms of just being able to be connected to the earth and growing your own food. And from there, I slowly started to learn, and I slowly started to make a
Mm.
plan for myself. And then I started to talk to my
Mm.
family about what that plan was and why. And then for me personally, I decided to commit my career to helping others do that as well. And that was just a personal choice. But I think my advice is the first two steps, you know, learning as well as talking with those that are close to you about what is your plan. If you are inspired to get involved with climate, start with a plan. And that's really also, I would say, how Walking Softer started in many ways, was coming up with a plan for personal impact. And that doesn't necessarily mean recycling
Mm.
more. It could mean figuring out what's your family's carbon footprint and figuring out how you want to offset that for the year and committing to that for the year. It's those little things that will get you more involved and get you more engaged.
Yeah, I love that. And that's probably very motivating. I know that you mentioned your family, and I know this, that your family has a farm. So is that right? You grew up in some capacity, at least, tightly knit to a farm environment. How was that either part of it or not part of it, or how has that changed for you now that you know more?
I love that question. Remind me of a funny story. After I really started to learn a lot more about food when I was in college, I went to visit my family at our farm in very rural Virginia, and I was talking to my grandfather, and I said to my grandfather, "Did you know that it's less harmful to the planet to grow organically?" And says, "Organic? What do you mean?" And he said, "I got these tomatoes from my neighbor over here. I'm pretty sure that that's organic. I've been growing my own herbs in the backyard for so and so many years. I'm pretty sure that that's organic." And it was just this really special conversation with my grandfather about how he has grown up working the earth, working the farm, really being himself a farmer, and how disconnected I was by thinking that I could go to him and say, "Do you know what organic is?" When in reality, he's the real deal as it relates to sort of farming and just understanding the land. So I think my upbringing and connection to the farm had a huge impact on me, but it really was not realized until I started my own learning journey and appreciation of the planet and what all it could give us.
It's definitely a generational thing. It seems like a little bit, and maybe this is just my perception, but that there is the older generation that might have a better attachment, and then the younger, and maybe it's like frozen middle that isn't as tightly connected. And Vinny said this very well recently at the Young Leader Awards um, retreat. I love how he expressed and reminded the young leaders, like, people your parents' age just don't, they might not get it. They don't all get it. It's not part of the zeitgeist yet. Is there something that you think is happening with the younger generation that's helping move that forward, or why do they quote unquote, seem to get it more, or what's going to help that be sustainable, their knowledge and their learning, to move towards really sustainable solutions?
Hmm, that's a good question. In previous years, I used to do a ton of work in public schools, and we'd take classrooms outside a lot and do a lot of gardening work, and we'd always ask the kids, does anyone have a garden at home? And every single time, a few kids would raise their hand, and every single time, one kid would raise his hand and say, "My grandmother has a garden at home." And all the other kids would
Mm.
nod, or someone else would pipe up, "Oh yeah, my grandmother does too." And so there definitely is there is a gap in that um, being a habitual everyday thing in a lot of our lives. And I think that what we're seeing now, though, is a complete swing in that passion and in that interest. I think because of the amazing young leaders like Greta Thunberg that have really started to draw more attention to it. But I also just think there is a shift in young people really wanting to be heard and to have a voice and to know how to do that with social media coming on online so much stronger now
Mm.
and being able to use those channels in a way that um, allows their voices to be heard.
Yeah, that's true. It's a good thing. With somebody with so much experience and background in philanthropy, the world can get cynical and things can get tough. One, how would you define philanthropy personally? And then why do you think philanthropy works? Especially taking on something this big.
How do I think philanthropy works? I'll start with that one, come back to the other one. I think that philanthropy has the opportunity to move the needle on items that really have impact in a community, that are really close to some of the key things that eventually will become city level, will eventually become state level, will eventually become nationwide. But starting at that community level and really being able to lift up leaders that know their neighborhood,
Mm.
that know what their kids need because they are in that neighborhood.
Mm.
That's where I really see philanthropy works. And then, on a larger scale, I really see philanthropy's ability to invest in projects that have more risk, that are able to really come eventually to the for-profit side, but those really, really early stages need the capital to be able to show proof of success.
I love that. What are some of the big goals or hopes for Walking Softer this next year? 5 years. Year
Mm.
5 years.
We are so excited about Walking Softer. We really in 2023 set off for a year that was going to be really about implementing. We had our very first leadership summit going to Antarctica. We had our very first Young Leader Award cohort. We had our very first Young Leader Award gathering. And so we have been really busy implementing some of these inaugural programs as an organization. And as I was saying earlier, um, taking action, which is what we are all about. And so when we look at next year, um, we're excited to continue to grow the Young Leader Award program. We're excited for our second year of the Leadership Summit. I think we're really excited about amplifying more solutions,
Mm.
whether it be that we have a young leader in our first cohort that is looking for something that we can actually really reach into one of our networks to amplify, or it just be something really awesome happening in our high school education program that we want people to read about and know about. I think that's what we're excited for 2024. We've started to build this network. We started to build this Walking Softer community. And now we're ready to kind of share more stories about things that we're seeing that are just awesome.
It's nice when it's a good small world and you start to know more and more people doing the good things. I love it. So, Ty, coming from a family that had a farm and you grew up seeing it a certain way, now here you are, and it's time for you to be Farmer Ty again. And Walking Softer has taken ownership of a farm. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening with that?
Yes, we're so excited about this. I have mentioned a little bit that Walking Softer is all about lifting up other leaders. And Tori and Benny met Edward Mueller back in November of 2022. He's the founder and director of UCI, which is a university in Costa Rica that teaches all based on a regenerative framework, and together envisioned this idea and really led by Edward to start a global learning center for regeneration and really create an example that can be replicated across Costa Rica and then across the world for regenerative work. And so we purchased a farm in Costa Rica that we have been working with Edward and his team to make a plan and to get going in terms of farming. And I'm just really excited about all that can happen there, as well as all that we're going to build together in 2024.
It's going to be amazing. That farm is the field of dreams in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Very cool. Well, and I do want to say, because this is important, Ty, you're an awesome leader. You've built an incredible team. People, I'll speak for myself, love working for you and with you. I know that you have a lot of passionate people behind these goals and these visions for the immediate and extended future that we hope trickles down for generations. So thank you for being you and bringing those D1 skills to us, because we hope to really do the great work and continue to be meaningful change makers. So
Thanks,
thank you.
Kim. It's
Yeah.
all about the team for me. I appreciate it.
Well, that's it, Ty. I love it. Anything, closing thoughts or feelings, questions?
This was great, Kim.
That was
What
really
fun.
fun. Thank you.
So glad we did this.
Yeah, me too. I'm really looking forward to more of it. So wish you had your last bit. Cheers. Well done.
Cheers.